friends, welcome to another video. I'm sorry that this was filmed at a really weird angle. My little tripod I usually use has vanished into the black hole that is my room, and I don't know where it's gone, so I kind of had to prop my phone up against a stack of books. Look at this mug, it's my brother's. Is a tea you're looking for? I was going to make a part 2 of my Elementary versus Sherlock series. Then Peter Capaldi decided to leave Doctor Who, so I thought this would be an excellent time for me to rant about why I think that his stint as the Doctor was rigged from day one. I want to make it very clear that I, 1, love Doctor Who very dearly, and number 2, I have all the respect and love in the world for Peter Capaldi as an actor. One of the reasons I was glad that I binge watched The Owl was because of Peter Capaldi's character in season 2. I absolutely adored Randall, and Randall and Lick still cause me pain. He was never given the best chance to be the best Doctor that he could be. Sounds like a shitty motivation tape, doesn't it? You really can't look at a Doctor without talking about the world that the previous Doctor established and the tone that the previous Doctor established. Every Doctor is a seed, and the previous Doctor is like one of them really weird flowers that like lets its seeds drop into the garden where it is, and if that garden isn't up to scratch, it can go horribly wrong. Right up until Paul McGann, Christopher Eccleston, David Tennant, Matt Smith, we had grown accustomed to a line of very talented young-ish Doctors. The jump from having Matt Smith, who was, I think he was 25, 26 when he got the part of the Doctor, and that was the same age that the youngest Doctor, Peter Davison, was when he got the part. So Matt Smith was the youngest Doctor we've had in a long time, and possibly the youngest Doctor ever, and then we've jumped to Capaldi, who is now officially the oldest Doctor ever. This succession of young Doctors attracted a young audience, significantly women who had previously not been that into the show, between the ages of 16 and 30, but women make up about 55% of the fandom. It's important to remember this demographic when you're looking at Capaldi and why he failed, because you're looking at a demographic that, regardless of their age, is mostly made up of women. Also, when you look at the ratings for the show throughout history, the ratings tended to peak around younger Doctors, so Tom Baker, Peter Davison. Highest viewed episode ever was Voyage of the Damned, which was the David Tennant Christmas special with Kylie Minogue, and it had like 13.2 million viewers. Following Voyage of the Damned very closely is Matt Smith's first Christmas special, A Christmas Carol. It had a solid 11 million views. And of course, after that is The Day of the Doctor with 10.2 million views. At the height of Matt Smith's era, he raked in about 11 million views. Matt's lowest viewing for any episode was 6 million views. That was his lowest. I mean, David Tennant had some pretty shitty episodes, like look at that freaking one in New York with the pigs and Love and Monsters. I mean, I'm not saying that youngness is sort of the pinnacle of success for a Doctor Who episode. However, before Capaldi's first series, the lowest the show had ever gone in terms of rating was 6.08 million viewers. Capaldi's 13 episodes averaged at about 4 million views. Let me stop rambling numbers and put it to you like this. Capaldi's most successful episode in terms of ratings was The Husbands of River Song, and it sat at a pretty comfortable 7.7 million views. His peak is Matt and David's worst. So Capaldi's best is here, Matt and David's worst is here, and their high is up here. This is obviously not just because Capaldi looks old. There are plenty of episodes featuring old Doctors that have way more views than Capaldi's. What we need to ask ourselves is, why is it all of a sudden the show getting such low ratings? You know, these ratings are literally halved. You know, Matt Smith had 8.8 million viewers for his debut episode. Capaldi had 4.4. Stephen Moffat, in an interview with the BBC a couple of months ago, said that he basically believed that Doctor Who's failure to accumulate viewers was because of the inconsistent time slot that it got. 8:15 is not very family friendly. It was also moved to the same time slot as the X Factor or something, which always raked in more viewers than Doctor Who. Truth is, I mean, it's only 45 minutes after its usual time. It still means that there are literally millions of people who used to tune in to watch this show that aren't doing it anymore. I know I bag on Steven Moffat a lot in my videos, in my Sherlock critique videos, but the truth is I haven't always hated him as much as I do now. Steven Moffat has done really good work. The ratings for Sherlock Season 2 and the ratings for Seasons 5 and 6 of Doctor Who were some of the highest ever for both shows. When Matt Smith was the Doctor, episodes were averaging anywhere between 7 and 8 million views, with episodes frequently getting to that 8 million mark. So in 2 years we've gone from episodes that bring in, you know, 8 million, 9 million, 10 million views, and then all of a sudden, you know, we've got episodes that are lucky to bring in 7 million. And mostly are bringing in 4.5 million. So I have 4 reasons for this. Number 1, inconsistent characterization. Capaldi's Doctor debuted as this really gritty, really grumpy, I ain't got time for your stupidity kind of Doctor. He was curt to the point where he was reminiscent of William Hartnell. Then one series later, in series 8, it opens up with this very gritty, very grumpy, very straightforward, curt man, you know, bringing in a tanker to a jousting tournament and coming in with a friggin' electric guitar and inventing the word dude and claiming he doesn't like hugging. But by series 9 he's hugging Clara. His character was sort of kicked around like a football in the hopes that it would eventually score with the audience, but basically this led to a character that we couldn't trust. Capaldi's constant character change gave us a character we couldn't keep faith in, and sealed his fate as a character that everyone was eventually going to end up hating because he wasn't who he has always been. But the inconsistent characterization didn't only lay with Capaldi. Clara jumps all over the place, from being a woman who insists on having her own life separate to the Doctor, to sacrificing her own life so she can dedicate her life to saving the Doctor, to wanting to kill him for not saving Danny, even though she admitted that she couldn't ever be in love with Danny because she was in love with the Doctor, but then at the end of the story has to make the Doctor forget her forever so that she can travel in the TARDIS on her own with Arya Stark for the rest of her days, even though that's initially the thing that she did not want. Clara was a massive part of Peter Capaldi's problem. A companion's job is to be our way into the story. You know, it is the person we're meant to empathize with, to question the narrative, question the ethics of what the Doctor does, and be amazed. Any other sort of characterization should come later and be developed through those 3 jobs. Because the interesting thing about Clara, and one of the reasons I initially liked her a lot, was because she was a sort of very much the first companion that we saw from the Doctor's perspective. We were encouraged more to empathise with the Doctor and wonder how Clara could be this impossible girl who kept turning up in all these different time zones. Really, if you took that whole impossible girl aspect away, she wasn't that well developed as a character, you know, and that was rather the point, that she was just Clara. Her chemistry with Matt was also like a big part of what made her storyline interesting, you know, because you had the Doctor sort of obsess over Clara, and it made their chemistry very intense. Matt and Jenna have admitted that they played the characters like boyfriend and girlfriend, but when Matt Smith left, so the whole Impossible Girl arc, it was gone because it had been sort of concluded, but also it took that chemistry away and sort of left Clara dangling in the breeze. When Capaldi came in, we were introduced to Clara's perspective, which is something we hadn't really had before then. And all of a sudden it was like Steven Moffat realised that he hadn't actually developed this character beyond her impossible girlness and her connection to the Doctor. Clara was established as this very influential character in the Doctor's life, but we didn't actually know anything about her, despite the fact that we'd been with her for a whole bunch of series. She couldn't really be a normal companion after that, but despite all that, Capaldi and Moffat gave 12 and Clara the best shot they could, but unfortunately the visual age difference just made that sort of chemistry uncomfortable, and Clara's insistence that she sort of loved him in the same way that she loved Matt Smith's version of the Doctor really disconnected her from the audience, especially when you consider that by this point people really weren't into Capaldi. Instead of the companion being our voice in the story, Moffat's writing turned her into a failed poster girl for an unpopular narrative that was very quickly losing his viewers, and basically established that not only was Moffat disconnected from his audience, but so were the characters that he was writing. Which leads me to point 3. The episodes were awful. Capaldi's era was characterized by a lot of recycled monsters from the classic series that people like me, who really only watched New Who, were not familiar with, and really paled in comparison to the enemies we had grown used to, like the Silence, Bastion Errata, the Weeping Angels. The Zygons aren't really going to scare you, especially when they look like toilet paper that's gone rotten in a dumpster. And it was also like, because Capaldi's Doctor was so serious in the early days, they tried to balance that out by having these ridiculous monsters like robots terrorizing Robin Hood. With the exception of Missy, okay? I know this is all a bit doom and gloom on Capaldi's era of Doctor Who, but I have to say that I absolutely adore Missy. She has some of my absolute favourite lines of anything ever. She's so funny. Also, Capaldi's era had a lot of two-parters and a lot of cliffhangery episodes that no one really cared about, and this is for a lot of reasons. One, the writing was terrible, no one really cared anyway, and two, because of Moffat's refusal to actually kill off any characters, both in Sherlock and Doctor Who, he created this mentality that it didn't really matter what characters were going through, because obviously they were going to stay alive. With all his twists that Rory wasn't really dead, River's not really dead, Sherlock's not really dead, he created this staleness to any kind of cliffhanger. Which brings me to the last point, why the writing got so weak. When you think about, you know, Tennant's era of Doctor Who and Smith's era of Doctor Who, they're characterized by these great big story arcs. David Tennant had Dalek Khan, who kept popping up throughout the series, and Matt Smith had River, and also had the Impossible Girl that linked all the others, and Silence Will Fall. Even Chris Eccleston with Bad Wolf, they had story arcs that linked all their episodes. So you, as an audience member, knew that something big was always coming. Capaldi's era, in comparison to all those, it really lacked purpose. There was no big build-up, really. And when there was, it really was only for maybe one episode, and then it was never ever mentioned again. I wasn't waiting to find out the answers to these questions, because there were no questions being raised throughout the series. Which is ironic, because Capaldi carried characters with him like Clara, like River, these characters who had a very convoluted history with the Doctor and could very easily have created an ongoing story arc for him. Instead, these characters weren't used at all, which kind of brings me to point 4. Capaldi was always going to fail because he never had the chance to create his own character. When David Tennant regenerated into Matt Smith, the TARDIS was blown up, his clothes were in shambles, he had no companion, so the 11th hour could focus solely on him forming his own identity, and everything in that episode is designed to let Matt Smith explore himself and establish himself as his own version of the Doctor. The whole fish fingers and custard montage and every single element of the 11th hour worked to show you that A, yes, the Doctor was still the same character, but B, you know, he was slightly different. He was a new man, but the same person. That sounds really deep. But coming back to my silly seed metaphor, Matt Smith was given a whole new plot of soil to grow himself in, but Peter Capaldi wasn't granted this same courtesy. Even David Tennant, though he still had Rose, still had a pretty relatively clean slate, given that Christopher Eccleston only had one season. His relationship with Rose was already very, very much established as what it was going to be, and the dynamic wasn't going to shift all that much. Capaldi's first episode, Deep Breath, was an absolute mess. It focused more heavily on Clara's reaction to the Doctor changing rather than the Doctor re-establishing his sense of self after a big change. The Doctor, as Capaldi, spent a lot of his very first episode convincing Clara he was still the same man as Matt Smith, rather than showing, this is how I'm different to him, but that doesn't mean that I'm better or worse. The worst decisions that was made in that episode was having Matt Smith ring Clara and say, like, I'm still him and I'm still going to need you. One, I thought that was ridiculous because Clara knows the Doctor can regenerate, so the idea that she would be shocked by that and not want and would reject him was absolutely ridiculous to me. And two, by having that phone call, it created this idea that the writers were already scared that Capaldi was going to fail, so scared that they needed the previous Doctor to literally give his blessing. It was a massive sign of the lack of faith they had in Capaldi, and possibly the reason why they subconsciously didn't give him any room to grow as a character. Think of it like this, you know when you go on holiday somewhere, or not even holiday, like you know when you just happen to go somewhere where no one knows who you are, so you think that, you know what, I can do whatever I want, and because everybody in this place where you are doesn't have any expectation of who you are, so you can just be yourself and your identity can be formed just basing it on what you do rather than what you should be doing for certain people. Capaldi was carrying Matt Smith's leftovers. The return of the Dr. Mysterio, while a overall trite episode, was really Capaldi's first good episode. And why? Because it was the first episode that he was free from Clara and River. You know, he didn't have to pretend to be happy and young for Nardole, because Nardole only knew him as that. River was gone, he didn't have to try and prove that he was still Matt Smith. Basically, it was the first episode where Capaldi didn't have to try and prove that he was as good as Matt Smith or was the same man as Matt Smith. He just had to be the Doctor, and by default, that was his best episode yet, but unfortunately it was too little too late. So now we have received the news that Chris Chibnall will be taking over Doctor Who. He had a hand in writing Torchwood, Merlin. He's also written previous episodes of Doctor Who before, such as Dinosaurs on a Spaceship. Doesn't really inspire much confidence for me because I hated that episode, but I am a big Merlin fan, so who knows. Rumour has it Chris Chibnall is also going to be dumping the new season's companion, who we haven't met yet, Bill Potts, played by Pearl Mackie. So the first companion of colour that we have had since Martha Jones. Unless the ratings for the show skyrocket this year, I really don't think that Chris Chibnall, I don't think he'll risk having a diverse Doctor. I love how we say diverse for anyone who isn't white and male, like they are the majority, and you know, the BBC tried to change it up with Capaldi and it basically rewarded them with half their ratings. If I had to pick a weedy white male to play the Doctor, I would probably go with Ben Whishaw. Just if you haven't seen him as Freddie Lyon in The Hour, pretty good Doctor material there. But just for the sake of posterity, here are my 5 dream Doctors. Naveen Andrews, for anyone who doesn't know who that is, he plays Jonas Maliki in Sense8. He is absolutely beautiful. My cousin actually suggested Naveen Andrews to me after I went on a rant about how much I love Jonas, and I haven't been able to get it out of my head. So yeah, Naveen Andrews, if you ever watch this, man, audition. Lara Pulver, that's I have to put in there, but I do actually think that she would make a good Doctor. Unfortunately, you know, she's with child right now, so I don't think being the Doctor is high on her list. So I'm trying to think of actors that have strong presences on screen, and for me, she has a very commanding presence. Alfie Enoch. I mean, I really didn't think anything good would come of Wes's death in How to Get Away with Murder, but it's freed up Alfie's schedule, and he's British and he's not white. So I'm just saying. I'm just, and I apologize for butchering this name. Parminder Nagra, British, and she's not white, and she's not a male, and she's beautiful, and has a commanding presence, and yeah. Natalie Emmanuel would be another choice for me. I just love her. She is a beautiful human being, and she's British, and once again, not a straight white male. I'm just putting it out there. I think I went over 5. Anyway, but the last person on my list is Tania Miller. She plays the Time Lord Council dude who regenerates into a woman. She is a dark-skinned woman of colour, and I couldn't help but think when that dude whose name escapes me regenerated and was her and she stood before me, I couldn't help thinking, yeah. So yeah, that's my Capaldi rant. Tell me in the comments or whatever, who do you want to be the Doctor? Totally not going to judge you on whoever you pick. I think it would be pretty cool if we had like a fully not human Doctor. A lizard Doctor. Just do me a favour though, don't say Benedict Cumberbatch, because I'm just about sick of him invading all my fandoms. Like, can I have this one corner, this Benedict free corner? Eva Green can play anything, anytime. She could play my wife in real life and I would be totally for that. Just putting it out there, just saying. I will see you from a better angle next week. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe. I make new videos every week, usually on Wednesday or Thursday. I try Wednesday, but sometimes I forget what day it is and it ends up being Thursday. So yeah, thank you guys. Bye.